Great. And Licheng, also can you I mean we
Ah,
will have a
yeah.
introduction about you later, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Do I? Okay. So I'm Licheng Liu. So today's speaker, I'm right now in the University of Minnesota, a research scientist, working for the Digital Agriculture Group and the AI Climate Institute. Really nice to be here, and I'm excited to present some of my recent work.
Yeah, I'm excited. So we have a broad audience from Morocco, wow, Netherlands, Austria, India, exciting, Italia. Welcome everyone. Yeah, thanks very much for joining us, especially for some folks it's really early morning or very late at night. So we really appreciate you joining us. So we have just 3 slides on brief introduction about our FluxNet ECN community. So could you go to the next one, Sam? Yeah, so we have about 10 members as a committee and we do diverse things. So for example, we have the social media on Twitter and also email lists. So if you want to get the information about FluxNet ECN community, you can sign up for this FluxNet ECN mailing list. Also, for example, this tutorial and seminar will be recorded and uploaded to the Meriflux channel, and we also have many other tutorial on how to process the eddy covariance data using R and Python package. So you can please visit the Meriflux channel and you will see all this tutorial available online. During this presentation, if you have questions, then please type it in the chat and we will get back to this after the seminar and tutorial. So today's presentation is part of our two AI and ML seminar series. So we had the one 3 weeks ago, and this is our second one, and we are very excited to listen to the seminar and tutorial on knowledge-guided machine learning for estimating carbon fluxes using eddy covariance data. So our invited speaker today is Dr. Licheng Liu at the University of Minnesota. So Dr. Licheng Liu is a senior research scientist leading the KGML division in the AI Climate Institute at the University of Minnesota. So this is very exciting approach that combines the process-based knowledge with machine learning approach to understand carbon fluxes. So Dr. Licheng Liu research centers on enhancing our understanding of greenhouse gas sources and sinks in agriculture and natural ecosystem to explain their roles in climate change and provide actionable insights for mitigation strategy. So I think the seminar, we will have like 30 minutes seminar on your paper that was published in Nature Communication this year. And after that, you're going to give a tutorial, right? Okay, sounds good. Yeah, thank you. Licheng, please share your screen now, and yeah, the floor is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yumi, for your great introduction. I'm really being honored to be here and to present my recent work. Let me try to open my slides. Where is that? Um, okay. So today my topic is going to be the knowledge-guided machine learning model for estimating carbon fluxes using eddy covariance data. And I'm today's presenter and introduce the third time, Licheng Liu. And our lab, the digital agriculture group, is currently hiring. I would like to see that in the front in case you forget. If you are interested, please feel free to contact me. We are trying to hire postdocs and as well as the next year PhD student. And the AI climate is also important climate institute hosted by 3 universities like Colorado State, Cornell, and leading by the University of Minnesota, which focusing on the climate smart agriculture and forestry. So today's topic mainly focusing on the agriculture and climate change. I'm going to introduce how we use the covariance tower data in the agriculture, trying to boost our simulations or quantifications of the carbon budget in the agriculture. So a little bit background is agriculture production accounts for about 25% of the global greenhouse gas emission and 10% of the US greenhouse gas emission. But one thing is we can manage what we can measure, and manage is big important part in agriculture. And we want to mitigate the climate change, then we need to better quantify the greenhouse gas emission from the agriculture land. Define the problem in the agri ecosystem, and the modeling for the carbon budget quantification is looking like this. We want to develop a model by giving the current future climate, baseline alternative management practices, cultivars, and soils. And if we might also have some extra information from remote sensing or in situ sensings. And then eventually we are going to have some outputs, estimate outputs of the like GPP, greenhouse gases, so organic carbon changes, and crop yield. But this task is extremely challenging because of we have incomplete physical or biophysical representations of the processes, and the land it has large spatial variability, and for models to extrapolate, and along with the time we have non-stationary patterns with climate change, and all those observations needed are at different modalities and skills and quality. So we want the model can conquer these challenges, but the conventional models are always have limitations. Right now, I'm going to introduce two conventional approaches. The very first approach is widely known called process-based model. Process-based model is a numerical representations of one or several processes characterizing the functioning of the complex system based on established scientific understanding. As you can see here is in the coordinates with two dimensions. One dimension represents the use of the data. Another dimension represents the use of the scientific knowledge. Process-based model will be on the left top corner, and can take best use of the scientific knowledge, but may not be well use of the data. And here is one example of the process-based model. Those equations represent one single process of substrate concentration changes. And this is only one process. A process-based model, a complete process-based model can have dozens of such processes with hundreds of parameters, and sometimes can go up to 1 million lines of code. So it's going to be complicated. Then it has limitations like the accuracy, because less use of real world data, it can always be limited. But it has a really high interpretability. The also other shortage is because it's really complicated, so the efficiency is low and the structure and data flexibility is low. But it's also, and the bright side is because of the significant use of the knowledge, so the data needs is also low. Comparing to the machine learning models in previous decades always used as black boxes. And a machine learning model is built on machine learning algorithm, but and trained primarily based on data to recognize certain types of patterns and or make predictions. Those conventional black box machine learning models, like what we have known, the MLP, the conventional neural network, recurrent neural network, or modern transformers, and so all of them can, if we use them directly to map the input from input to the output, then it can be considered as a conventional black box machine learning models, no matter what model structure it is. Then it has some short pros and cons, as you can see here. Blue represent the pros. I forgot to say previously. So it can reach high accuracy because it is trying to match the best to the real world data, but the interpretability is relatively low because it's black box. We don't know what happens inside, and its efficiency and structured data flexibility is going to be high. And because it's relatively simple, understand like the structure is going to be simple and with some replicas units inside or replicate units inside. But the downside is the data needs for training a reliable machine learning model going to be extremely high. That will limit uh, the machine learning models to be used in some specific case with really limited data, like every ecosystem. So the question is, can we combine these two models to overcome the shortcomings in the ecosystem modeling? Then we come to the knowledge-guided machine learning model. The process-based model, given the limitations, hard to run in the large scale with high resolutions and accuracies. Conventional black box models require large amount of data to understand the complex soil processes, and also hard to need huge amount of need a huge amount of data to understand them. The knowledge-guided machine learning models can combine those two models' advantages and overcome the shortcomings. So let us see how exactly the knowledge-guided machine learning model can be achieved. This is the conventional machine learning applications in the agro-ecosystem carbon and carbon prediction. You can see if we want to uh, apply a machine learning model in the prediction task, first we want to design the architecture of the machine learning model. We randomly initialize the weights inside the machine learning models. Then we train the machine learning model with some real world data, trying to minimize the distance between the observations and predictions. Eventually, we can have some new data like climate, environment, and driving our data to everywhere. That is a conventional machine learning application. Then for KGML, let us see where we can incorporate our knowledge. The very first thing is we can incorporate our knowledge in architecture design. Like we can combine the process-based model architectures or some causal relations inside the architectures to um, develop the hierarchical architecture and trying to uh, mimic the processes inside the natural ecosystems. And then after that, we can also use some knowledge-guided initialization to replace the random initialization to give a better starting point toward to the global minimum rather than the poor local minimum. And one way I introduced here is using the synthetic data generated by the process-based model to pre-train your model. The synthetic data comparing to the real-world data going to be extremely cheap. So we can use a lot of those synthetic data to pre-train our model before using the limited real-world data. And when moving to the real world data, we also have ways to constrain our model during the training. Because it has a limited, the data amount is limited, we can use some other ways to design our loss functions to incorporate knowledge called knowledge guided loss term inside the loss function. This knowledge guided loss term can represent some constraints like mass balance, energy balance, can represent some empirical responses, and also can represent some common knowledge about like some variables thresholds. And all those knowledge can be incorporated in this knowledge guided loss function and to constrain your machine learning model training. Eventually, during the extrapolation, we can also use some knowledge to constrain the model, adapt to the certain location if we have a knowledge of the differences from the original location and the transferred location. So with all those four steps, we might be able to develop a really advanced knowledge-guided machine learning model to give us a better quantification of the carbon budget. Afterward, I would like to introduce a few cases of how to use these methods and combining with eddy covariance tower data. The one thing is the recent publications about the knowledge guided machine learning models trying to improve the carbon cycle quantification in the agroecosystems. In this model, we want to generate reliable predictions of carbon fluxes, crop yields, and changes in the soil carbon stocks at high resolution in the US Midwest. We also call that area is Corn Belt because over 85% of the corn generated from this region. And the algorithm is knowledge guided machine learning model. Let us briefly check how we incorporate the knowledge in the knowledge in this work. The first is we design a knowledge guided architecture based on our understanding of the holistic ecosystems. Beyond the some surface observation, surface variables like GPP, autotrophic respiration, hydrotrophic respiration, the night ecosystem exchange. We also have some focus of inside part like the soil changes and the biomass changes, crop yield changes. And we design such work focus like output something we can measure in the real world, but also incorporate some architectures to mimic the to simulate the internal interactions between those variables, like the feedbacks from the yield to the soil, and also the variable relations like the yield RA and NE are some variables related to the plant, and the NE and RH some variables related to the soil, and some things are and some basic informations like reanalyzed climate and soil information will be shared to simulate all those variables. And some other ways to incorporate the knowledge we have used is we use a process-based model called Ecosys to generate some synthetic data to pre-train our model before using real-world data. And then later on, we use the knowledge guide loss functions to constrain the training processes. We design multiple loss terms inside the loss functions like mass balance constraints in the daily scale, threshold constraints like constraints the yield, RA, NE, RH, to make sure they are always within our expectations of based on common knowledge. And also we have some response controls like when because data is imbalanced in space and the time, we don't want the model during the fine tuning using real world data deviate to some specific locations data in data dense, but we also want to cover some specific situations like in the boundary in the extreme cases with limited data. So we can use response control to make sure our data, our real world data didn't mess up our overall distributions of the simulations. And we also use some knowledge guided extrapolations. We know that GPP is controlling the whole processes, especially the spatial distributions, and GPP can reflect some management practices from the agriculture field. So we assimilate remote sensing GPP to guide the model extrapolation to the large scale. And some specific pieces of each part of our case is going to be the first is a ecosystem model. Ecosystem model is a Canadian crop model and with mainly developed based on first principles instead of the empirical functions. It is complicated and contains multiple cycles like nitrogen cycles, carbon cycles, thermal cycles, and water cycles, and is simulated layer-wise soil profiles and structured plants. So within this ecosystem model, what we focus on is GPP, the the Ra and Rh and R equal, the GPP R equal can be derived from the eddy covariance towers, and NEE is measured by the eddy covariance towers, and yield in some towers has been measured as well. And for the architecture design, we leverage our information from the leverage some knowledge we learned from the process-based modeling. We consider the causal relations between those variables, and we predicted the yield annually and the carbon flux daily. We consider the plant feedback to the soil from the residue, so like yield being harvested every year at the maybe 200 around 300 days, and right after that we move those carbon left in the field to the soil part, and also we assimilate remotely sensed GPP at the input. And right after that, we in the pre-training processes, we use this process-based model generate some synthetic data. We call that free data. And also we use this model, we use some physical principles or responses we learned from this process-based model to guide the pre-training processes. So to let the model best mimic the synthetic data to learn some pre-knowledge and the patterns and all those variables, how they respond to the climate, soil, and GPP. And the synthetic data generated here is we generated like the data from the 2000 to 2018 in the 3I states called Illinois, Iowa, and Indiana states. We generated over 10,000 samples, 19-year daily samples with different crop rotations like corn, soybean, or corn, soybean, like that. And after that, the knowledge guided loss we used here is we use mass balance constraints. We use the GPP plus the RE so we consider the positive directions here, and so they are like GPP R equal and NE. They are follow a mass balance in the daily scale, and also we have some response control using the partial dependence plots. So we calculate the partial dependence plots for during each training epoch. Then we use some methods to constrain this PDP plot to make sure it follows our expectation. And right after that, when we get some real world data, here is our study area, US Corn Belt, containing multiple states beyond the 3I states. 3I states is in the middle. And the stars, those stars represent the eddy covariance towers we are going to use. In total, we used 11 eddy covariance towers. And for this region, we also collected the 630 counties USDA NAS statistic yield survey yield data, and they are county level data during the 2000 and 2020. And then the issue is how we can effectively use this multi-model data to fine-tune our model and to gain the best performance. And during the training process is we used the also incorporate the knowledge to constrain our model. Mass balance is used, and also RH identification from the R equal time series has been used here. Is um, we can introduce a little bit here is because we don't have RH partitions for the R equal. We only have the R equal derived from the NE in the eddy covariance tower. But we do know in the agriculture ecosystem, during the winter we have no plants. That means all of the respiration coming from the heterotrophic respiration. So we use this knowledge to constrain our model, and also combining with the pre-training, we have found our model are capable to partition the RARH over the whole region. And also we use some yield threshold constraints. That is a common knowledge. Like yield, it's we whenever we harvest yield from the ground, the yield cannot exceed the half of the GPP carbon. So this is have been observed from the all previous historical data. So we use this knowledge to constrain our yield as well. And also we use some response constraint by using the PDP. And we comparing the new calculated PDP after fine-tuning and before fine-tuning to make sure the PDP shape didn't change that much, because we in the synthetic data world we have plenty of data can cover nearly all the scenarios. But in the real world, we only can have certain data in a specific time. So we use the data to constrain. So we use this way to make sure our shape of the response curve didn't change that much. Later on, during the tutorial, I'm going to see how this is going to be achieved in detail. And right after that, during the extrapolation, we use those those data to drive our model. Like we use the slope 250-meter daily GPP product over the region to drive our model. And also we use the NL, the dust data as climate data, which is very comprehensive climate data over the US. We use that data to drive our model in the Corn Belt. And also we use G-Circle soil data, which is also a comprehensive soil property data in the US to drive the data, drive our model. And also we use CDL and CSDL merged crop type data, because CSDL is a refined crop layer data, but it only available after 2008. So we use CDL to fill the gap before 2008 to gain the crop type data over the region. And eventually, let us check, after a bunch of constraining, after a bunch of a lot of knowledge incorporating into the machine learning models, how it performs. Here is a brief demonstration of the KGML model comparing with machine learning model and process-based model ecosystem. Represented in the green, and the pure machine learning model represented in the blue, and our KGML represented in the red. In general, you can see the KGML model can always outperform both other models, and no matter in the corn yield, soybean yield predictions, or the RECO fluxes or NE fluxes predictions. Another thing very interesting to be found is, in the data limited situation, the x-axis represents the data used to train the model. In the data limited situations, like 0, 1 site we use to train a model, and we can always see the machine learning we can see the big differences between the KGML model with the machine learning models, like for the crop yield simulations, for the NE predictions, and even in a situation with no data constraining, and our model can also, the KGML model can also work. So which is barely impossible, like almost impossible in the conventional machine learning approach. And this KGML can also outperform the ecosystem model, which is its originate process-based model in a situation with no data constraint. And let us check the how each part of the constraining contribute to the KGML performance. Here is a machine learning model without the GPP constraining. When we add the GPP data assimilating the satellite GPP data, it increased like 0.22 R square performance. And then right after that, we add into the pre-training, and we can get another 15% of increasement. And right after that, we have some knowledge guided architectures, and we have some knowledge guided loss functions. The performance keep increasing, and the increasing amount is marginal here, but still increasing a little bit, reach to the final KGML at carbon. And a little bit extra explanations of the use uh, of the contribution to contribution of the structure and loss function. Here is when we analyze the mass balance residues, we can find the knowledge, the pre-training can first can significantly reduce the mass balance residues. Mass balance residues we count as differences between the GPP and R equal plus the NEE. So that is the difference, like how the system violating the mass balance. Then we found that if the model has no prior knowledge, only assimilating GPP, then the model will violating the mass balance rule significantly. While using pre-training gain some prior knowledge, it will significantly reduce from 2.03 to 0.64. Then we add into the structure and the knowledge guide loss. Then the mass balance residue reduced to the 0.18, meaning barely not violating the mass balance rules. And some other things demonstrate the contribution of the structure and knowledge guide loss functions. And these two steps help our model to better capture the complex dynamics rather than the mean values of the dynamics. As you can see here, in the middle is the NEE observations from the eddy covariance tower, and the blue and green represent the pure machine learning model simulating GPP machine learning model with pre-training, and the red represent our KGML model. And as you can see in the some regions, like in the peak regions, we can see our model, the red line, always trying to match the complex dynamics of the fluxes. It's not overfitting. And because it's all those things are like out of sample demonstrations. We didn't train anything over this side. And while you can see the blue line and green line, they are trying to capture the average, especially the blue line, only trying to capture the average of the fluxes, and which is quite impressive to us. And right after that, let us check the partitioning results. As I have mentioned, we use because in the ecosystem, corn soybean agriculture land, we didn't have any plant during the winter, and so we have set up a constraint that after the planting and before the next year, after the harvesting and before next year planting, we think all the all the respiration coming from the hydrotrophic respiration, we add this information into our model, and together with the process-based model pre-training, we can find our model captures can give a reasonable partition of the R equal into the RE and RH in the real site, as you can see here. And especially during the winter, the nearly all of the respiration coming from the hydrotrophic respiration, and during the growing season, most of the respirations coming from the autotrophic respiration, which presented as the green line. And meanwhile, our model can capture the total R equal very well. So after introducing this study, we also have some other applications using the knowledge guided machine learning model and the eddy covariance data. Another data is we also develop a knowledge guided machine learning model data assimilation framework, can assimilate both remote sensing data and in situ eddy covariance data effectively. Here is a model structure. Basically, we design a hierarchical structure and use synthetic data pre-train this hierarchical structure. The hierarchical structure have like 4 cells, and simulating the LAI phenology stage at the bottom cell, like upstream cell, and then we simulating the ET soil moisture at the bottom cell. Then we simulating some plant states like the GPP, NEE, R equal biomass. Eventually, we simulating the some LAI at current stage and yield at current stage. So all those things we are simulated in a hierarchical way, and we use the synthetic data pre-training this framework, and also we developed 2 ways to assimilate new data coming to this system. One way is we use the machine learning based ensemble common filter combined with the autoencoder to assimilate the new data to update the predictions. And another way we use is a very conventional way. We use parameters. The parameters is also input into this model, so we use parameter and to calibrate the parameters of the model in a specific field to uh, better get a better simulation. So these parameters calibration use the historical information to do the calibration. Every 3 years we update a set of parameters to guide the model simulation. And for the state variable updating, meaning we using the on time, like real time observations to update the predictions, drag the predictions to the to match the real world data. And here is a demonstration of the results. For this site, we only use the Flux Tower GPP, a simulated Flux Tower GPP. And the red line is Flux Tower is our assimilation results. Green line is results without the model results without any constraining or assimilation. And as you can see, we only assimilate GPP into this model, but all the downstream tasks like the R-equal simulations, the biomass simulations, LAI simulations, all those simulations performance increased based on assimilating the GPP. And that is because of we are using a hierarchical structure to simulate these variables with um, considering their relationships. And right after that, we also use KTML applications and adequate tower trying to partitioning the RA/RH data in the various ecosystems. And this is work is in preparation, and we have tested this framework in three natural ecosystems: forest, the grassland, and the shrubland. So for this, here is a illustration figure. We can see the in the ecosystem we can measure. Normally, we measure the NEE from the ecosystem and derive into the GPP and R-equal, but the R-equal further partitioning to RA/RH cannot be found in the FluxNet. So we are trying to partition this R-equal into the RA/RH, which RA represent mainly the plant processes, while RH represent the soil processes. And this kind of partitioning is important because if we can know the better about the RA and RH, we can better constrain the plant processes and the soil processes, which can be very distinct under which response to the climate change can be very distinct. So we want to make sure our model can be very reliable in the future scenario, and then we might need to do such kind of partitioning. And here is the model we have developed. We have incorporate knowledge by developing a hierarchical architecture, considering the soil part and plant part, and simulating the biomass, GPP, the RA above ground, RA below ground, and also soil organic carbons. And we use knowledge guided loss functions and knowledge guided transfer learnings to eventually implement this model in the various locations in the US. We have first tested in the US. And the performance is looking like this. We combine the data not only from the eddy covariance tower represented in the as a star in this map, we also use some chamber data collected and harmonized by the so Ben Lambert. So he has harmonized this chamber data, soil respiration chamber data in the soil respiration database. We use that database together with adequate data to train our model. and then we get a performance like this way, and we combine with the FluxNet data and also the related the observations from reported by the soil respiration database at right side. Here is partitions. At first, we can see our model can capture the predicted, the observed R echo pretty well. And while we can give really reasonable partitions of the above ground autotrophic respiration, below ground autotrophic respiration, and hydrotrophic respiration. And these all those the summary the summary the total of those respirations over a year comparing to the soil respiration database, as you can see, is also within the range. Also, for the other side, here is another forest site. We can see the same thing. And here is another forest site. Oh, here is a grassland site. And we can see for the grassland site, it didn't perform that well. So this work has some potential to be further improved if we can have more expertise coming from the different, especially from this community. Okay, that will be the all for today's presentation. And the presentation, some take-home message for this presentation is KGML is a flexible and effective way bringing knowledge and to machine learning and utilizing ethical covariance flux tower data. The KGML can outperform the conventional process-based model and black box machine learning models for ecosystem greenhouse gas estimations and holistical carbon cycle quantifications. But this approach needs to find the proper knowledge capable to constrain the processes. And developing the KGML needs deep understandings on both the process-based models and machine learning techniques. And KGML is at a nascent stage, can continuously leverage evolving machine learning techniques and scientific understandings to improve ecosystem modeling and decision making. Okay, that would be all for my presentation. And I'm ready to take some questions, comments. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
really, really nice overview, Licheng. You have a few questions. I think first is related to your slide 20 or something.
Mm-hmm.
From Carr. So Carl Norland, the question is, I was curious for the contribution
Mm-hmm.
to any efflux. Would the structure and the knowledge guided loss element still have a small contribution if the GPP data and pre-training were left out? So that's
Um,
related to your slide like 20, yeah.
yeah, we have done a really comprehensive factorial test, but not only focusing on this kind of combinations, but also other combinations. You might be able to find in the paper supplement. And I have to say we have found right the knowledge guide loss and structure if the GPP data and pre-training missing, we can contribute a little bit more, but the GPP loss and but those things cannot be like dominant the performance improving. The data itself is still the most important part we have to see right now, no matter synthetic data or real world data. So if we have some of them, those data can significantly improve the performance. But some knowledge, if we only use knowledge, the performance still very limited. So that might be the one finding we from our full factorial test.
Thank you, Lichang. The
Mhm.
next one was related to your slide 22, from Ajit Kovan. Sorry if I don't pronounce it correctly, but can this be extrapolated in time and space if land use remains the same? So I think that's
Uh,
related to your slide 22,
22.
22.
This one?
I think so.
Uh, Yes,
or
yes.
23? Yeah.
23, this one? Or some actually, so all of those like Kijima models can be extrapolated in time and space because we are testing them actually using the out of sample meaning out of in space and time, like if the land use remains the same. So the real the only thing we cannot extrapolate is the land use changed. So maybe from the agriculture to the forest, we didn't consider that in current situation. So every results presented uh, in this slides are out of sample, either out of space or out of time extrapolations.
Thank you. And feel free to unmute yourself if you have further questions. Yes. And the next one is related to your slide 24 from Rota. I was wondering if you had a chance to check any years from the Cone Belt EC flux data that observe abnormal or equal and how your model performed during those periods. It would be interesting to see the model's performance during times of
Uh,
abnormal carbon flux observations. Interesting. So, for example, the corn soil rotation in Illinois during 2014 to 2015 experienced a respiration burst. That's
yeah, yeah,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
did
that's
you
interesting.
observe this from your model?
We didn't exactly check that period of time, but we have checked some other very interesting uh so abnormal carbon flux observations we want to emphasize is they are performed quite different from the uh other years, and especially under some extreme years. So in this paper, we have considered something. We have done some testing in the extreme years, but not that year. But that's going to be very interesting. Maybe we will check that time. But some extreme year test has been done, and I would like to show you maybe here, so you can see my Chrome website, right? Okay, let me see. Um. Oh, I okay. I didn't present the extreme year model predictions and also time series right now, but we have tested that in the response in one round of response letters to the reviewers, and we have also found that during the extreme years and the model, especially with some knowledge and the constraining, can perform much better than the no matter process-based model or machine learning models. And we have identified some extreme years based on the anomalies of the yield over the corn belt. Because during the extreme years, especially extreme drought, the corn the no we will normally um, experience a decreasing in the yield. So we have found some such abnormals, and we have found also those fluxes can be different from other years. Then we have found the knowledge guided machine learning models can also capture those trends even if they have been excluded from our training set. So they have never seen them, but they can still perform pretty well in extreme years. So that is one thing I would like to say.
Super cool. Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm sorry, Licheng, so how we have lots of questions. Maybe like if you're
Mhm.
how long is your tutorial? Because we have
Tut-
1.5 hour.
Yeah, maybe I can try to finish the tutorial as soon as possible, then we can keep answering the questions in the chat. Is that okay?
Um, Maybe yeah, that would be good for other yeah, audience. So what about we will get back to questions from Seungmin and others after the tutorial. Yeah, so let's just move on to tutorial first. First,
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then we will get back to this other questions at the end of the tutorial.
Yeah, really, I'm really happy to see your interest and I'm really want to
Yeah.
answer those questions, but given the time, I may have to move to the tutorial because this tutorial previously has presented in the workshop, took 2 hours. So I don't want to spend that much time this time, but I want to give you a sense how to take use of the uh, code we have provided in this paper and to initiate some development of your own knowledge guided machine learning model. And you can find the code, you can download the code and data here through this find this paper and through this link. You can download this code and you can find the develop process developing and training processes being documented, and all the intermediate data have been also saved for you for some test. And today I'm going to introduce a little bit about how to 2 steps of the training and using the technical data and also ethical managed data. The very first thing is we are going to introducing is let me go back to this step. It's using the synthetic data to pre-training your model. And so this step is as you can see, when you download the code, you will find a folder called the 5-step training. And inside the 5-step training, you will have the training step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And today I'm going to introducing the step 2, which is the pre-training for the fluxes, and the step 5, which is fine-tuning using the ethical covariance tower data. And for the pre-training, I have like here is a pre-training. First, we have load some libraries include the KGML library. KGML library is a library I like actually is a code library I have developed for the KGML and including multiple models and loss functions. Right now, we are working on generalize this to be better used by broad audience. And after we load the libraries, and oh, this is mainly developed on the Python, by the way, if you're not familiar with this. And this is a Jupyter notebook, which is popular for demonstration of the Python codes. And each this is called a cell to let you run codes part by part, so you can get some outputs immediately right after a chunk of codes. And we are running on the Python and mainly using a library called PyTorch, which import Torch. Torch is a short name of the PyTorch. You can also always learn PyTorch in their official website. I really recommend they have a 1-hour tutorial with a PyTorch, and which you might be able to initiate develop some deep learning work with a Equine Tower. And I'm going to moving fast with for the rest part. So basically loading the libraries, then define some functions. Coming to the data processing part, if you want using your data for your models for machine learning use, you need to process them into some specific structures. All of those things are data processing, and the variables here, including the RA, RH, and EE, and the another variable including the output variable is yield. And we have some input variables including the radiation, temperature, precipitation, humidity, wind, and crop type, GPP, and also year. We also have some soil properties, layer-wise not layer-wise, the total soil properties, the average the layer-wise soil properties as an input. And then we harmonize into a matrix like this way. The first dimension is a time. Actually, we have processed them and into like the first dimension is the time. Second dimension is a batch, like 100 site meaning, and then The third dimension is features. We use 19 features as the input, and we are going to output 3 flux features and 1 annual features. So that is, you need to process your data into this format to facilitate the further training of the uh, model. And then we are going to split the data into training and validation and testing data set. So for this case, we have, because it's pre-training, we all those data are synthetic data. We didn't exclude some testing data. We only split data by time to the training and the validation side. Then we like after this step, we are going to we have already separate the data, like around 80% of the data for training, 20% data for validation. And right after that, we need to initiate our model. And here is way we initiate our model. Here is a model we developed. This model has been saved in the KGML lab. We can search this name in the KGML lab. Okay, why I cannot find that? Okay. So you can see here is a machine learning model architecture. It developed mainly by the PyTorch library, and it used the GRU, which is a recurrent neural network as its basis. It has some like ways to connect these GRU basic simulations predictions using some like relations between those variables, like we predicted the yield first and generating some output from the basic GRUs. And then we share this information with the RA predictions. We also, for the RH predictions, we calculate the response, like the annual carbon responses to the soil. And also we can design some architectures considering the NEE by using the RA predictions and RH predictions as input into the model. Eventually, we need to output all those variables. So that is the machine learning architecture. You define some basic cells, and then you like connect them into the forward part, and then you will eventually output them some your predictions. And then by using this cell, we are going to initiate our model. And here is a model structure generated like presented here. We have some GRU basic, GRU RA, RH, and EE. And also we have some dense layer for them and the attention layer for them. And talking about the weights number of this machine learning model, you can count through here. Like here is a two-dimensional like weights for one single GRU. And when you multiply them together, you will get a total number for this single GRU basic. And when you add them all of them together, the total numbers of the weights going to be around 20,000 to like 100,000, that much. So basically, it has a lot of parameters inside, but most of the parameters are replicates from some replicate units, and so that is a machine learning model. And right after the machine learning models development, and we will go into the training part. The training part, we need to define some hyperparameters for the model, and then we go into the model training part. We basically train the model multiple times with multiple iterations. We call that epoch. So we train like we set the maximum epoch is 80, meaning we want to train this model 80 times with our synthetic data. And during the training, there are some very important steps, like with some data processing. We need to separate the data into small pieces so our model can finish the simulation using the GPU. And the key part is when we are going to use a model to do the predictions first, and then we use the observations to calculate the losses, and then we use the losses to backpropagate the models, to backpropagate the errors in each weights inside the model, then update the weights inside or parameters inside the machine learning model, so that we can keep updating the machine learning model. That is called backpropagation. So during the processes, we are going to the machine learning model is going to uh, uh, like moving to the right position, which can provide the better simulations matching the real observations. And as you can see here, when you run this chunk, this cell, your model will start training, and the training loss is presented here, training R square presented here for the like different categories of the losses. And then your model, as you can see, your training losses are decreasing basically every time, and then that means your model is converging, and eventually you will get your model being well trained. I'm not going to finish all the training. It's going to be time consuming. But one thing I would like to introduce here, if you remembered, we have introduced some knowledge guided loss functions during the pre-training. So you can see I have developed my own loss with mass balance. So you can also search this inside the lab. So you can see the mass balance loss functions is designed like this. You are, because this loss function is actually very flexible. You can design whatever loss functions based on your knowledge. Right now, I only use simple mass balance functions designed for my uh, like flux constraining. So you can see here during this inside these losses, beyond the normal the MSE loss, we also calculate the mass balance term. We calculate the GPP, RA, RH, and EE, and then we use the mass balance loss to calculate the mass balance residual not over a tolerance value. So eventually we added these two losses together, trying to optimize our model using these combined losses. And right after that, imagine your model is well trained. We need to test our model. And you can see here we use some model, we can use some testing site to train our model, to test our model. And I have tested, it took about 33 seconds to finish the testing. Basically, I would like to see here is all those processes, especially deep learning models, need to be run on the GPU unit. So if you don't have a GPU processor on your computer or in your cluster, you might not be able to run this whole codes. And you might not even run the model for, like without training. So it's took like 36 seconds maybe here with GPU, but if using the CPU, it may take hours or days. Like we can see some results. Here is a general plot we always want to see is training losses versus the validation losses. The training losses meaning the in sample test after each step inside in the training data set. Validation losses meaning the loss out of sample test in the validation side. And we want to see our model, we want to check our model is not overfitting to the training data. If there is overfitting, the validation loss going to increase. So here is the overall RMSEs, and we also have the flux MSE and the mass balance. Mass balance uh, the losses as I have presented to you, and I also have some constraints like RH to the hydrotrophic respiration to the soil organic carbon. So this is responses I'm going to introduce later, and it's some responses using the partial dependence plots, as I have mentioned, trying to constrain the response curve of RH to the soil organic carbon. And right after that, let us check the performance. Here is yield predictions. But this time we trained using the synthetic data to train our model. And for those fluxes like RA, RH, and NEE. And as you can see, the model can capture the here are the out of sample tested results. So you can see basically they can capture the model's performance pretty well, the synthetic data pretty well. Then with this as a foundation, we can, or a good initiation, we can move to the real world data, meaning the real world data here is using the Adico tower to train the GPP, train the NE and R equal flux. For this step, I can see here, I didn't write a really good annotation here, but it's similar to the previous step, loading things and loading some scalars and do some data processing. And here is one thing I would like to mention a little bit is in order to reduce the data imbalance from the real world data, we need to maintain the responses of the model didn't deviate too much. And the way we have done is we calculate the responses from the synthetic data like this way, the synthetic data. And like for the, for example, it's for the auto like hydrotrophic respiration and to the soil let me annotate one, like for the RH response to the total soil carbon, and then the response should like along with the total soil carbon increasing, the RH should increasing. So we want to maintain such kind of responses, learn from the synthetic data to, and whenever what kind of data similar like used in the fine tuning. And the way we have done this is we develop some losses like knowledge guide losses. And this knowledge guide losses is here we have processed the flux tower data into the format similarly as before, the like with 3 dimensions, time, site, and also the features. And we match those features with original features used in the pre-training, and then we fine tune our model with this data. And here when we click this cell, the model it will start training. And what I want to like demonstrate here is the losses we have used to constrain the responses. And one thing I would like to mention is check the RA-RH responses. Within every epoch, we check the RA and RH responses, make sure those responses curve didn't deviate too much from the original responses curve learned from the process-based models. And those response curve, how we do that. So we use a way like let us check this response function, and we use a small sample of the synthetic data to check the model's response curve and calculate the partial differential plot after each iterations. And then we compare this revised response curve with previous response curve to make sure the response curve didn't deviate too much. So we set up like threshold for the response code differences by calculating the Pearson correlations between the response curves. And for some specific response curves, we didn't want them deviate too much, so we let the response curve, the Pearson correlation, Pearson correlation square didn't like bigger than the we calculate the those two things. Like one is this compute R square is a correlation of determination, and also Pearson correlation. We calculate those two things, make sure the distance didn't moving too much, and also the um shapes of the response curve didn't deviate too much. We set up a like minimum of the Pearson correlation value here, as you can see. Like most of them cannot exceed cannot below 0.8, and some of them we think they are quite important and the data limited in the real situation, so we set up the response curve cannot change like beyond the 0.9 Pearson value. So, and for some specific, we want to really constrain it so the Pearson value cannot below 0.99. So we use this way to constrain our model, not changing too much, deviating too much, losing too much information from the pre-training. And here is, as you can see, the model is training and the losses are decreasing, meaning our model is right now it's right now converging. So it's still training, but I'm going to stop here. I hope that would be cover most of the most important part in those codes, but feel free to trying to like test whatever you feel interested in this model. There are 5 steps, but basically they only covers pre-training and fine-tuning. Because for this specific task, we use multi-steps for pre-training and multi-steps for the fine-tuning. So that's why we have multiple steps, but only step 2 and 5 related to the flux tuning, flux training. And that would be all for my presentation and the tutorial.
That's amazing. Thank you, Licheng. That's very, very helpful. Yeah, especially the response function, like how you set the parameter. It was just one quick question before moving on. Like, what was the Pearson value, like 0.99? Like, what is the response that
Oh,
you are constraining very strictly?
0.99, like
Like the values you are setting it for the mean, yeah, Pearson
yeah,
value. Like,
yeah,
I was
let us
curious.
check the supplement information. So basically some specific, we are considering the data density. And as you can see, here is a RA, like data density. And we don't want some specific thing change below change too much.
Uh-huh.
Some responses, if they have a really little data, like
Gotcha.
what is that one, like like pH, we have found that that was going to deviate too much from the, if we using this sparse data to training, because as you
Mm.
can see, our synthetic data can range from the 5 to 8, but the real data only range from the like 5.5 to like a really sparse, like maybe 7.8. So with those sparse data, we cannot ensure the reliability of the response curve. So that's why we set a 0.99 of the Pearson value to maintain the response curve didn't change that much.
Thank you, Licheng.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we have 15 minutes left, and yeah, let's quickly go over I think you have like 7 questions that we didn't cover
Yeah,
before, so let's
yeah.
quickly cover this. So from Seungmin Lee, um, you said that you did data simulation. So I think that's related to your data simulation KGML
Mm-hmm.
DA slide. You said
Yep.
that you did data simulation of flux generated by PB model, remote sense GPP and else into KGML, agriculture, carbon. Could you elaborate on that process? And would it be possible to learn the implication of this process in the tutorial part?
Okay. Uh, yeah, data assimilation of flux generated by. Okay. Right. So basically, one thing the data assimilation I for the for this study for this tutorial is not going to cover that much. We only use the GPP as an input into the model. And training, like previously training using synthetic data, you use the GPP as input. During the FluxNet data, you use GPP as input. And in the regional scale, you use the remotely sensed GPP as the input. Then everything will be consistent. That can be one way to assimilate the remotely sensed GPP. And the beauty part of the machine learning model is it didn't matter. It doesn't matter what you use as input and what you use as output. You can also inverse the input and output to get the most important information you care about. So, but for the data assimilation part, I refer to the paper. I would like to refer you to the paper about this one. And oh oh, it's a no, it's a different paper. I cannot think. I'm making a mistake here, but this paper. I'm going to copy paste this paper right after response to this one. And you might be able to find the code and data here and learning the real data simulation with ensemble common filter and also parameter calibration. And you will find the code inside.
Gotcha. So this KGML model is also the code is available, so
Yeah.
Sungmin can refer to. Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you. Gotcha. Next one is UGA Liu. Can you
Mhm.
explain more specifically why pre-training with synthetic data works better than the directly using real-world data? So yeah,
Yep.
what's adding value?
Right. As you can see here, and the pre-training, I would like to also go back to the original paper because we have more information of this paper. Uh, let us see this one. So, as you can see, pre-training, why pre-training is better, like can significantly assist the model performance, especially in the small training data set, as you can see here. If we have a large training data, especially like if we have a huge amount of real world training data, synthetic data will contribute really little, like maybe only 1% of the like performance. But if your model is limited by the real world data, and the real world data will be obtained in a very expensive way or labor intensive way, so it's hard to gain in a short period of time, then synthetic data will help you to learn the general patterns, like GPP, how GPP responds to the climate changes, soil changes, or management changes, or how NE respond to those input variables. And it will have a general sense and when moving to the real world data, before moving to the real world data. And then it will significantly help you to like for the small training data, as you can see here, for the flux, it can increase 15% of performance. For the corn yield prediction, it can increase like 51% of the performance. It means this prior knowledge is very important, especially for this is a situation like NE flux because we have really dense simulation observations. So and the pattern is very like sometimes can consider as stationary over the time. So it's relatively easy to simulate. But for the corn yield, for the yield, and it can be hard because yield observations is not always existing in all sites and all locations all time. So the synthetic data will be very useful can help you to gain the general patterns or the previous knowledge how the corn yield responds to the your GPP, your climate, and your soil. And as you can see, this big uh, light blue like cell tells you how this can help.
Yeah, thanks for clarification. That figure very helpful. So from Robert Clement, is KGML as conservative as process-based models when dealing with out-of-domain features without training data, or is it equally proven to overfitting? So this can be related to the previous one that you just explained.
Conservative as process when dealing with out of domain features. Uh, yeah, for the two things, if these features has not been trained in the KGML, it cannot be extrapolated to anything. So the KGML right now not that flexible can handle like out of domain features. So I may misunderstand here, but another thing is if the KGML model like has like we can see here, we may have some outputs like uh RH, RA, and soil organic carbon, which we can barely have no observations in the real world. They are expensive. They are going to be expensive, and we when we extrapolate to the real world, even we don't have any observations of them, we can still have similar estimations as a process-based model for those variables. So that is going to be some so for the KGML model, that is one advantage of the KGML model. KGML model will be able to handle of some uh, features have no observations but exist in the process-based models. Like soil organic carbons, we didn't use any soil organic carbon changes to real world observations to constrain model, but we use some synthetic data to constrain the soil organic carbon. So the soil organic carbon changes will follow our human current understanding, but may not follow some future data like when they're coming. And but data is also still very important. If we have new data, we definitely need to use them to constrain our model. But the KGML model can be a intermediate solution to serve some situations. We need that variable super much, but we don't have any information, any observations. We can still give you estimates, like maybe with some uncertainties.
Thank you, Licheng. Well, sorry, you have lots of questions, so I will just go over. So
Yeah,
the next one is Hong Zhao about your slide 25. Why is your model performed better for forest case than the grassland case?
yeah.
Is it, yeah. What do you think?
Right. I think this is a really good example. First thing is for the grassland case, we didn't have the very good data set comparing to the forest side. And
Mm.
like for the forest side, maybe we have in the US we have around like 20 sites, but for the grassland, maybe we only have 5. And another thing is for the grassland, because we didn't further uh, uh, grassland can be disturbed a lot, like by the it will maybe some of them will die during the winter or will degrade in some like scenarios some years. But while the forest will be more stable than the grassland can against those disturbance, so that will be another way. And as you can see those patterns for the forest patterns, they normally follow like relatively stationary pattern, but for the grassland, you can see the observation fluxes are quite quite complex, much complex than the forest, and we don't know why because limited observations right now. So grassland it seems like a more complicated system right now comparing to the stable forest.
Hmm.
Only for the R-echo respiration part.
Next one is more generic question from Kabirat's. This work is really impressive, especially the way of combining process-based model with machine learning approaches. What are some of the challenges you face in implementing this model? When you develop this
Yeah.
complicated model, what were the
Right.
challenges?
The challenges, as I have mentioned here, the first thing is we need deep understanding of both process-based model and the machine learning techniques. And I don't think anyone can be experts in both domains. So that's why we, as a group, connected with some computer scientists sitting together, working for years, starting from 2020, working on the same topic, educating each other, eventually to gain this model come out. So it's a really long process of educating each other about the specific scientific questions we care and the specific techniques they want to try, and also testing whether they are appropriate for such question. So the deep understanding is necessary, but will need time to accumulate. Another thing I found specific.
It's like I can open the door, but I feel like you want to.
Oh, okay. Uh,
Sorry.
I don't know. It's fine. But another challenging part I found is uh, synthetic data part. So as you can see from this figure, we have learned a lot from the process-based model. A reliable process-based model will be important. And generating proper synthetic data covering all scenarios you're caring about is difficult, actually. So sometimes if you only run your model a few times without too much fairness, and then you will lose the ability to extrapolate your data to some very extreme cases. And we have taken like some time, some efforts trying to make the synthetic data work for all the scenarios.
Great.
And yeah, that will be okay.
Yeah, Licheng, you have one last question, and
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, we'll join. So the last one is from Nada Bistain. Hello, my thesis is focusing on monitoring carbon budget using remote sensing, and my question is, can we use the light use efficiency model instead of the process model that you've used, since it doesn't require a lot of data? And the second question is just to understand more about your work. Did you train the machine learning model with data predicted from process-based model? Yeah, so I think the second
Yeah, lighter
one
use
is yes.
efficiency. Yep. Mm-hmm. Right.
Second,
Right. Um, the first thing is light use efficiency model instead of process-based model. It's okay, actually. So in your specific task, if you, as long as you have some previous previous knowledge, scientific knowledge, you have the ability, you can incorporate them into your modeling, but you might need to be careful the way you incorporate the knowledge if it is not a first principle rules. Like if it is not that well known or complete knowledge, you might want to use a relatively soft constraint to your model than a hard constraint. What can be considered as a hard constraint, like architecture constraint, will be hard. And what is soft constraint? Like loss function can be soft. So maybe for your use efficiency model, because it blurs some processes. And so I recommend you incorporate the light use efficiency model through the loss functions instead of the architectures. So then that will be more efficient way to incorporate such knowledge. And another way, second question, trim with data predicted from. Okay, the data predicted from the process-based model, it's actually uh, relatively easy comparing to the real world data. Real world data is normally unformatted, unstructured. You need to pre-process them for the model use. But for the data predicted from process-based model, they are structured, so it's easy to use them to train the machine learning model. And the maybe one concern from here is maybe data predicted from the process-based model has its own uncertainties. Why are you using that? Because this data already, although they are predicted from process-based model, they are including some information, some knowledge to understand the responses between the targeted variables and climate drivers. So if your model can gain some knowledge before using some real world data like this one, then you might be able to have a better initial stage toward to the global minimum, optimization global minimum, rather than a poor initiated point toward to the local minimum. So that is the case.
Thank you very much, Licheng,
Mhm.
for amazing seminar tutorial and also answering all the questions that definitely a lot of people are interested in your work. And yeah, I think we went over all the talks, all the questions. So thank you again for your time. And thank you everyone for joining the seminar today. We will continue to have the FluxNet seminar next year. Yeah, have a great holiday and also, yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for joining.
Yeah. Yeah. See you.
Thank you, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Licheng.
Bye.